Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is going to be an interesting 2 days ahead of us that we have right here. I am basically going to be launching a 2-part mini-series in which I go through my brow routine, my eyeshadow base routine, my foundation routine, my blush, contour, bronze, highlight routine, just my brow, eyeshadow base, and face routine. I'm going to be going very in depth. I'm going to be showing you guys products. I'm going to be showing you guys brushes, techniques, my preferences, and this entire endeavor was actually inspired by one of you. I was reading my comments like ages ago and I came across one from the username I_bleed_makeup, and she basically commented and she requested for an in-depth video in which I showcase my brow routine and my face routine. And at the time I wasn't sure quite how I was going to go about doing it, so I kind of put that video on the back burner and I was thinking of how to do it and I was trying to construct an outline, but then I was like, you know what, I will just show you guys two options. I'll show you guys my brows and I'll also put in my eyeshadow base routine, and I'll also do a separate video and talk about my face routine just in general and talk about what I do whenever I wear foundation and what I do whenever I don't wear foundation and all that fun stuff. So I'm going to break this topic into 2 parts because otherwise it's going to be way too overwhelming, and I'm basically going to be, of course, including timestamps in both videos that I'll be publishing for you guys. Today's video will be all about giving you an in-depth look into my brow routine and my eyeshadow base routine. I'll tell you guys about what I used to do, what I do today, and why I do those things. I'll be giving you guys tips and I'll be showing you guys a full-fledged tutorial on my face today. Part 2 to this video will be my face routine, and that will be published tomorrow. So if you're interested in seeing that video, you can either subscribe and hit the notification bell, or you can simply check back tomorrow and you'll see that video as well. At the moment, I want to focus on my brows, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys what tools I have used and what tool I'm currently using to apply my brow stuff on, if you will. I will say that I, at the moment, am not using a traditional brow product or any traditional brow products in my eyebrows. I do not use a brow pencil. I do not use brow gel. I don't use any of that. I used to use a brow pomade that I loved, but now I've given that away because now what I like to do is I like to use a powder in my brows, and I don't use a brow powder. I actually use a neutral eyeshadow, and the one that I use all the time is from the Lorac Pro 2 palette, and I love using this shade right here called Cool Gray. And you can see that I've used it so much, it's almost completely finished. It is essentially like a taupey, very gray looking brown color. This has been like my method, my opportunity to basically take neutral palettes and neutral shadows that I otherwise wouldn't have used and to just use them for my brows. So I think that you can find a similar shade to this in any neutral brown palette. Now I have dark brown hair, and I actually like to choose a shade that is several shades lighter than my natural hair color. Why is that? Well, if I worked with a color such as this on my brows, which one could argue is a very similar color to my natural hair color, it would make my brows look too intense. It would make them look way too intense, and I would basically be left with a effect that would not be a pleasing one, in my opinion, because I do not want my brows to overtake my face. I want them to frame my face. And when you're doing your brows, these are my brows right now, this is what they look like. They're not very appealing, I guess. But with my brows, I'm not trying to redraw brows. I'm trying to add to the brow shape that's already there. So really, what I'm trying to add color to is the skin underneath the brows to make my brows a little bit more intense and to just make their shape a little bit more obvious, if that makes any sense. When I was younger, I definitely did overpluck my brows without even meaning to. I just didn't know how to do my brows, and I mean, they were always kind of like this, but now I kind of have like patches that I want to like just add color to. So that's why I want to use a brow powder. And using a brow powder as opposed to other mediums for me is just a lot easier because powders can look more soft, more diffused, and it's just a lot more malleable than using a traditional brow pencil, which can A, take more time, and B, I mean, I just have to spend money on that. Why spend money when I have like a shade like this in almost every single neutral palette? And then let's talk about brushes. Now, I obviously use a brush to apply my brow color. You can use a angled brush if you want. This is one from EcoTools. It's really decent. There's nothing wrong with it. But I do prefer using this right here. This is from the Morphe brush line, and this is the Morphe M432 brush. This, I believe, is meant to be used as an under eye brush. However, I like using it as a brow brush because the shape of it is so wide and the brush itself is really just narrow. It creates a very soft line which I am able to use to mimic the look of natural brow hairs. I'm gonna go ahead and do my brows now in front of you guys. I'm gonna first take this brush. I'm going to take a little bit of color on, and just to like give you an idea of like the effect that this brush creates, this is what you can get from this kind of like color and from using this kind of brush. This is a really like intense line. You can also use a lighter hand. You can see there, I barely touched it. So yeah, there are like a variety of different strokes that you can do. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be you putting too much pressure on to make like this kind of intense line. Oftentimes I like to make a line such as this to really just give me some definition, but to also not overpower my look. So I'm gonna start off, I usually start off by doing the underside of my brow. I like to just put the brush here because you can see here I don't have as much hair as I do in this area and this area. So I'm basically going to lightly draw in some color, see right there. I mean, this usually takes a lot less time when I'm not talking, but as you can see, I'm gently moving up. Now, I don't typically like to create the effect of a very blocky looking brow. Usually. Whenever I'm doing like a more intense look, sometimes I think that's okay, but the reason why I like to start at the bottom and then go up is because I don't necessarily want my brow to look too structured. Sometimes I go for a structured brow, but not usually. So I'm just gonna again add some more color in that lower area, gently move up, and now I think I want to go for the tail of the brow. I personally like to extend my brow shape depending on what I want to do. Today I'm going to take the remainder of the color left on the brush and just draw out the brow so I can add some length to it. So as you can see right here, I'm pretty much stopping in this area right there. I'm going to take what's left on the brush and add some more definition to the innermost part of my eyebrow. I usually like to leave this area pretty like just minimal. I don't like putting a lot of dark color there because then it just looks a little bit unnatural. But when I have like a little bit of product left on the brush, then I go for this area, because for me I find that if I go in that area with too much product, it just looks really unnatural. It starts looking really unnatural, and I'm trying to create a natural looking brow shape. This is pretty much almost it. Now what happens is there's like this little area right here that has no hair, and I'm trying to grow that area out. I'm actually trying to grow both my brows out, which is why they're looking like so like just janky. But there is no hair in this area. So what I do is I take this, I load it up with some color, And then I basically try to extend the hair that's already there, and I basically make a little bit of an addition, and I take the brush and I move just past where my natural hair ends on my brow, and I add a little bit more color into that area. Then if I want to go for a slightly more dramatic look, I take the remainder of the product left on the brush and I just like add some depth to the rest of the brow. So that's what I look like with like one brow done. It's definitely not your perfect Instagram brow. It is far from that. Some of you might be looking at this and thinking, wow, really? But for me, like, this works. This is how I do my brows at the moment. And I will say that I'm not interested in the perfect brow. In fact, I'm perfectly fine with having like a few hairs here and there that are not part of the main brow area, if you will. I'm fine with having a few hairs out of place because I'm growing out my brows. And I don't necessarily want to be tweezing or waxing my brows into perfection every single week, because I know that I kind of want to go for like the natural brow look, and if my brows are overly perfect, then it starts to deviate from what I want my brows to look like in the first place. So this is what I do, either when I'm filming or when I'm just doing my makeup for every day. If I apply a little bit of too much brow powder and I want to make the look a little bit less just intense, I usually just take either a spoolie or a mascara brush that I cleaned out, and I basically just brush through my brows a little bit, and that usually helps diffuse the color. The reason I'm not doing that today is because I actually can't find the little mascara wand that I use. I'm not sure where it is. My sister might have it, but that is a great tip if you want to sort of like fix any areas. If you want to make this area look a little bit less structured, you can easily just take like a spoolie or like a mascara wand that's of course clean, and by clean I mean completely cleaned off of any mascara that might be on it. If you have like expired mascara, just take the mascara wand, clean it out with some soap and water, and just use that for your brows. That's a great tip, I think. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the brow portion of this video. Now we're going to talk about eyeshadow base. I think eyeshadow base is incredibly important. I love doing colorful, complex makeup looks, and for me, if I don't have an eyeshadow base, my eyeshadow is going to slip and slide. I also want an eyeshadow base that has an opaque finish. I want it to cover up some veins that I have on my lid, and I just want it to create like an even canvas so eyeshadow can stick to it. So that's why I like using an eyeshadow base. Like, those are the things that I want from one. I will say that for the longest time, I didn't find any kind of eyeshadow base that I actually liked. I think it's because I would try sheer to semi-sheer eyeshadow bases, and since those kinds of eyeshadow bases didn't really tick all the boxes for me and didn't really do much for me, I did not like them. However, I recently was able to start trying out the new Anastasia Beverly Hills eye primer, and while this is definitely still in the testing stages for me, this is what I'm going to be using today, because so far I like this effect a lot. Before I had this though, what I would use as an eyeshadow base, if you will, was simply a foundation or a concealer. Now, if you watched my tutorials, or if you have been watching my tutorials, you would have seen me use several just foundations that I really liked specifically for eyeshadow bases. Now, I will say that foundations are great to use for eyeshadow base if you are in a pinch, because they can essentially do they can essentially be a substitute for an eyeshadow base. I would use one of these two foundations every single time I did my eyeshadow base, and the reason was these just worked well for me as eyeshadow bases, and they worked better for me than any kind of eyeshadow primer or eyeshadow base that I was trying at the time. So I like these two foundations because they are full coverage, they cover a lot, they stay on really well, and they are supposed to be long wearing. So because of that, it basically ticks all the boxes that you need for a good eyeshadow base to perform well for you. So in that sense, if you are trying like a whole bunch of eyeshadow bases and you can't find one that works for you, my suggestion would definitely be to look in your makeup collection for a long wearing, full coverage foundation so you can apply it to your eyeshadow base. I'd suggest a matte because those tend to be easier to use and they don't tend to slip and slide that much on the eyelids specifically. But of course the con of like using these as my eyeshadow base was that they were not necessarily light enough to really make colorful shades pop. Of course I was able to create colorful makeup looks, but at the same time, like, this is just the exact same color as my skin. And the reason I think, well, one of the reasons I like using this eyeshadow base is that this actually is several shades lighter than my natural skin tone, which makes really colorful shades pop. So if you're looking for colorful shades to really pop in your eye looks, I'd suggest looking for a base that is several shades lighter, if not a lot lighter than your natural skin tone. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this eyeshadow base on my fingertip. I don't really need a lot, I'm just going to use this. And usually if I want to use more, I just go in for more later, but I feel like it's better to just start out with a little bit and then see what more you can do. But I'm usually somebody that likes to apply eyeshadow base with my fingertips because I feel like then you get the most coverage and you don't waste as much product. So I pretty much spread it around using my fingertip. And as you can see, this is several shades lighter than my skin tone, so this will be great when I apply some colorful shadows on later. So now that I've just applied this eyeshadow base, I'm going to go in with a brush. This is my favorite brush to use for this sort of step in my makeup. This is one of the Real Techniques brushes. I believe that this is one of their crease brushes. I wouldn't necessarily use this in my crease, but this is ideal for really packing on product into like small crevices of your face and also for blending out eyeshadow base. So I'm just taking this, and since this brush is so tightly packed, it will still maintain the coverage that this base is providing, and at the same time it does a fantastic job of blending things out as well. So I don't really have to blend this out a lot. I just have to go in a little bit, and I feel like that pretty much is all I have to do. This is pretty much the finished look. This is the brows and the eyeshadow on the eyeshadow base. I know this was a little bit of a really detailed video. I did not know I could go so long talking about eyebrows in one video. Oh my goodness. But I hope that this video was helpful and that it was informative. I know that I decided to go a lot in depth into a lot of things, and I just want to say, again, I am not somebody that is qualified. I'm not an expert in this. I just look at my face and I see what works. And I know that I don't really talk about these things much with you guys, but I figured I might as well do this in these two videos that I'm putting out for you, especially on the topic of eyeshadow base, eyebrows, face makeup, and foundation, pretty much. The foundation video will be up tomorrow if you guys are interested in watching that video. I think that I'll put this one up first just because I feel like eyebrows then face is like a more organized way of doing things. Plus I filmed the eyebrows and the eyeshadow base video first, so I might as well do that. But yeah, if you're interested in seeing that video, you can either subscribe to my channel and press the notification bell, or you can come back tomorrow and that video will be up for you guys. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it very informative, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye guys.